Some children never really got to be children. They learned responsibility before they learned rest. They became protectors before they ever felt protected. Carl Jung would call them the prematurely individuated, souls forced to wake before the world around them did. While other kids cried and were comforted, they cried and were told to toughen up. They learned to read moods instead of storybooks, to predict anger instead of chase dreams. And somewhere in that chaos, they stopped growing outward and started growing inward, silently building walls where playfulness should have been. They didn't rebel, they adapted, because survival always comes before self-expression. And that's how it began. The birth of an adult inside a child's body. When a child grows up too fast, they don't lose innocence overnight. It fades in fragments. A harsh word here, a silent dinner there. The first time they realize no one is coming to save them. That's when something shifts, not outside, but within. They start smiling when they're sad, apologizing when they're scared, helping others to earn the love they should have been given freely. And people call them mature for their age, not realizing that maturity born from pain isn't wisdom, it's defense. Jung believed that every child forced to parent themselves carries a split inside, one part endlessly strong, one part endlessly tired. The world sees the strength, only silence sees the exhaustion and the tragedy. They mistake that exhaustion for personality, when in truth, it's just unhealed survival. As they grow older, these children become exceptional at reading others and terrible at understanding themselves. They sense tension before words are spoken. They can tell when someone's lying by the air in the room, because long ago, they had to. Their safety depended on it. This hyper-awareness becomes their superpower and their prison. They can feel everyone's emotions except their own. They become therapists in friendships, anchors in relationships, fixers in every storm, yet no one ever asks what it costs them. Jung said that what you repress in childhood becomes the ghost that directs your adult life. And for them, that ghost whispers one message: be strong, always. So they build lives around control, not because they want power, but because they've never felt safe without it. And beneath every act of composure lies a trembling child, still waiting to rest. Love becomes complicated for the ones who grew up too fast. They crave safety, but fear dependence. They long to be held, but don't know how to receive. They measure their worth in usefulness, in how much they can fix, calm, or save others. And when someone finally offers real love, it feels foreign, too soft, too still, too unconditional. Because unconditional love exposes how unloved they once felt. So they pull away, not out of arrogance, but confusion. Jung believed that the psyche resists what it cannot yet process. So when these souls meet peace, their trauma mistakes it for danger. And so they self-sabotage, not to destroy connection, but to protect the fragile sense of control that once kept them alive. It's not coldness, it's caution. The kind born from too many broken promises, too many nights of pretending everything was fine. Healing for those who grew up too fast doesn't come from pretending it never happened. It comes from finally telling the truth. That you were a child who needed warmth, but got responsibility instead. That you carried burdens no one thanked you for. That your strength was never a choice. It was a reaction. Carl Jung believed that the parts of us we suppress as children become the shadows we chase as adults. So healing isn't about becoming stronger. It's about allowing yourself to need again, to admit that you're tired, that you miss being cared for, that you never really felt safe. And in that honesty, something powerful happens. The mask begins to fall, because you can't heal what you still pretend doesn't hurt. And when you finally stop performing, your inner child takes its first breath in years, fragile but free. Reparenting yourself means becoming what you never had, patient, gentle, consistent. It means no longer punishing yourself for being human. You start speaking to yourself the way you once needed someone to. You stop chasing people who resemble your pain and start choosing those who match your peace. At first, this kind of love feels strange, uncomfortable even, because peace feels foreign to a nervous system built on chaos. But Jung said that growth begins when we stop identifying with the wound and start identifying with the healer. So you begin again, slowly. You sleep more. You rush less. You learn that resting isn't laziness, it's recovery. And one day, you realize you no longer crave the storms that once made you feel alive. Because stillness, at last, doesn't scare you anymore. As you continue to heal, you start to notice how much of your identity was built on overfunctioning, always helping, always fixing, always holding it together. And when you finally stop, you realize how exhausted you've been for years. The silence feels uncomfortable at first. You'll feel guilty for resting, undeserving of peace. But that guilt isn't truth, it's conditioning. Jung would call it the echo of survival. It's your old self, still trying to prove worth through suffering. But you're done proving. You've survived enough. Now it's time to live. The adult you've become finally sits beside the child you once were, not to silence them, but to listen. And in that sacred reunion, the split begins to close. The strong part and the tired part finally start to breathe as one. In the end, growing up too fast taught you what love isn't, so you could finally learn what love is. It's not sacrifice without balance. It's not strength without softness. It's not silence out of fear. Real love, the kind you now build for yourself, feels steady, calm, and unshakable. It doesn't demand you to earn it. It reminds you you've always deserved it. Carl Jung believed that the goal of the soul isn't perfection, it's wholeness. And wholeness means welcoming every version of yourself. The caretaker, the dreamer, the child who survived. They all belong to you. And when you finally embrace them, not as fragments, but as family, the weight lifts. You stop needing to be strong all the time. You stop apologizing for being tired. And for the first time, your maturity feels light, because the pain that once defined you has now become your wisdom.